to tell you, they got Caitlin Clark, the most dynamic, ruthless player on the planet. And I'm telling you right now, the way things are looking for this Indiana Fever's team, sky is the limit. Stephanie White is coming in here, laying the law down. We did the video.
You might be able to make a little change right there, a little coin, a little taste. Wet your whistle, so to speak. Right? Make you some bread. Interesting. We still do not have legalized betting.
Last season, they dragged Caitlin Clark and ignored the Fever. Now those same voices can't stop hyping them up. But is all this praise real or just another setup? Stick around, because what we uncovered about the media's sudden flip will change how you see this season.
230, Aces plus 350, tied for second with the Indiana Fever at plus 350. Cheryl Reeve probably punching air right now at a plus 360. In fourth place on the odds makers total.
They dragged her name through the mud last season. Now suddenly, they're her biggest fan. After months of nonstop hate, the same media voices who once downplayed Caitlin Clark's talent are flipping the script. But don't be fooled. This switch-up isn't about growth. It's about survival.
You heard negative take after negative take after negative take. And I'm already telling you, man, the season really ain't even got started yet. And we'd have heard way more positive takes this year than all of them last year, bro. I just got to keep it real. I mean, the takes last year was horrendous. I mean, you had people hating left and right. But this year, you know what it sounded like? Music to my ears, bruh. Different takes, positive vibes. And I'm telling you right now, the Indiana Fever is cooking.
Last year, Caitlin was a problem for them. Her rising fame, record-breaking viewership, and sold-out arenas didn't fit the narrative they wanted to push. Instead of celebrating her, they labeled her overrated, overhyped, and even accused her of overshadowing others. They tried to gatekeep women's basketball by shutting her out of the spotlight she earned. But here's where things started to unravel. Behind the scenes, pressure built fast. Executives, sponsors, and even the league itself began to notice something dangerous. The media's obsession with tearing Clark down was hurting the WNBA's bottom line. She wasn't just a player, she was the face of the league's future. The narrative had to change, and fast. And just like that, those same critics began calling her box office, dynamic, and a game changer. Funny how the tune changed when money got involved.
Pay attention to the odds makers, because there's a reason they're in those massive buildings and they tend to make the money. They've got the best insiders that there are. I mean, their insiders beat the insiders on ESPN and any other network that there is beats them all to hell.
But the most revealing part? The same platforms that refused to credit the Indiana Fever last season are now hyping them as a legit playoff threat. They act like they've been supporting the Fever all along, pointing to late-season momentum and a new head coach, Stephanie White. They talk like they saw it coming. But where was that support when the team was clawing for respect last year? The truth is, they only speak up now because silence would make them look clueless.
Now, the media, I told y'all, they was going to have to speak about Caitlin Clark and the Fever in a positive way this season. There was no way that the media was going to be able to continue the harassment of Caitlin Clark and think that they're going to make a profit. Because I believe that the Kathy Engelbert and other people, power that be.
What they won't say is that Clark forced their hand. She didn't need their approval to dominate. She didn't need their validation to grow the fan base. The fans came anyway. The ticket sales skyrocketed anyway. Now they're scrambling to catch up, pretending like they've been Team Clark from the start. It's fake, and everyone sees it. But that wasn't the whole story.
Let it be known, y'all cannot keep harassing these ladies, bro. Y'all gonna have to get credit where credit is due. Y'all are damaging the product. You don't want to damage the product, bro, because Caitlin Clark and Indiana.
Now they're acting like the Fever are suddenly a dream team because of one off season. What they ignore is how quickly this roster turned around and how rare that is in this league. The media loves talking Cinderella stories, but this isn't luck. It's strategic. And they hated that Clark was the one who sparked it. Meanwhile, podcasts and panelists are 10 toes down on the Fever's playoff chances, but let's not forget, just a few months ago, they mocked the idea that Clark could even compete at the pro level. Now they say she and Stephanie White are a perfect pair. Convenient, right? When it wasn't popular, they ridiculed her. Now that she's too big to fail, they're clinging to her name for clicks. And what happened next would shock everyone.
Of course, you need rivalry. That's what makes people watch. They want to watch games of consequence between rivals. They don't want everybody being nice to one another. So the social media is different today than it was in 1979 when it didn't exist. But, I always tell the players, I was told a long time ago, if someone's typing something in and you wouldn't ask their advice, ignore it. So
now that was the commissioner, bro. Now this is what I'm going to say about this. She's basically okaying these veterans to disrespect Caitlin Clark. She said out of her own mouth, everybody ain't going to be so nice to one another.
Even longtime Fever fans noticed the switch. The comments under media posts are flooded with sarcasm, receipts, and reminders. Viewers aren't forgetting how fast the media turned when the backlash got too loud. Some fans even say they missed the us against the world vibe because at least it was honest. The fake love now? It feels cheap. Bottom line, this season will expose the real ones. The media can't hide behind fake positivity forever. If the Fever win big, they'll act like they predicted it all along. If Clark struggles, they'll be the first to flip again. But the fans, they know the truth. And this time, they're not letting the media control the story.
Clark and Aaliyah Boston joking about it on the podium is they don't have any playoff experience. Janae, their starting lineup has a combined 0 games of playoff experience. Their entire roster has only 9 games of playoff experience. So that's the question, is when they get into those moments, how will they handle going against some of those upper teams that have been there combined 200 times?
Because what if I told you the WNBA's media shift wasn't organic? That the sudden wave of praise for Caitlin Clark didn't come from a place of honesty, but from pressure at the top. Because according to John, it wasn't just fans who noticed the hate, it was league leadership. And they weren't having it. Behind closed doors, people like WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert knew something had to change. The nonstop criticism of Clark wasn't just unfair, it was bad business. Ratings were up, tickets were selling out, and merchandise was flying off shelves because of Caitlin. So why were so many in the media treating her like a threat instead of the league's biggest asset? That question didn't sit well with execs. And once the backlash became impossible to ignore, a message was sent loud and clear: stop dragging the product.
Let it be known, she's condoning these veterans to attack Caitlin Clark. She's condoning the WNBA legends to talk crap about Caitlin Clark, like Cheryl Suits and many others. That's basically what she's saying. She's saying that the drama is good for business.
This wasn't about protecting Clark's feelings. It was about protecting the brand. The league had worked too hard to grow its image, and now that a golden opportunity had arrived, they weren't going to let bitter talking heads tank it out of spite. John hinted that certain names at the top made it known, you can't keep bashing the player that's keeping the lights on. And that's when things changed. Quickly. Almost overnight, media platforms that once questioned Clark's game suddenly began praising her impact. Shows that ignored her wins last year are now talking playoffs. And the timing? Way too convenient to ignore. These weren't genuine shifts in opinion, they were survival moves. When power speaks, people fall in line. And in this case, the media bent under pressure. But that wasn't the whole story.
This makes absolutely no sense. And I swear, they're putting all this money into that girl who ain't done blank but be white. I'm sick of this.
Because now, those same critics are using Clark's name to rebuild their own image. They want you to forget how hard they pushed against her. They want the clicks, the interviews, the airtime, without ever owning up to their role in tearing her down. It's fake support, and anyone paying attention can see straight through it. And what happened next would blow everything wide open. Because if this was all about respecting players, why didn't the media clean up their act sooner? Why did it take a behind-the-scenes push to finally show Caitlin the respect she'd earned from day one? The answer is simple. They were never going to stop until someone more powerful told them to.
The favorite to win the WNBA MVP in 2025. Let the salty haters' tears flow. That's right. There we are right there. Caitlin Clark is officially the favorite to win the most valuable player. Asia Wilson's right on her tail. Nafisi Collier right there. Breanna Stewart.
They called her overrated. Now they're calling her a superstar. And suddenly, the Indiana Fever, once the league's forgotten team, are the hottest ticket in town. The media didn't just switch up. They're now calling this team box office. But not because they believe in it. Because they have to. Caitlin Clark hasn't even played her second regular season WNBA game, and yet she's already doing what most players never will, selling out arenas, spiking jersey sales, and putting the Fever back in the national spotlight. And let's be clear, this isn't hype. This is history. From preseason coverage to mainstream media outlets that used to ignore the Fever completely, everyone wants a piece now. Not because the Fever changed, but because Caitlin changed everything.
Angel Reese is a plus 7,500. Tied with Brittany Griner.
But here's the catch, and it's a big one. The praise the Fever are getting now, it isn't built on team loyalty or real respect. It's about cashing in. The league saw the numbers Clark pulled in at Iowa and realized they had a walking gold mine. Suddenly, reporters and insiders who didn't even mention Indiana last year are calling them a must-watch team. Why? Because being on the right side of history sells. And what happened next only proved the point. Media personalities are rushing to tie themselves to Clark's rise, as if they were believers from the start. They weren't. The receipts are out there. But now that the Fever are trending, they're rewriting their own stories just to stay relevant. This isn't about basketball. This is about clout chasing. And the sad part? It's working. But that's not the whole story.
Engelbert, she's in deep, deep trouble, man. She has a huge decision she's going to have to make. And last year, we saw the beginning of her decision, which way she was leaning towards. But this year, I think she's going to have to fully commit. And it says the Indiana Fever will make up nearly 40% of all WNBA games broadcast on ESPN and ABC. In contrast, 7 of the league's 13 teams will have 2 or fewer games on these channels.
Because behind the smiling headlines and flashy previews, there's a quiet resentment brewing. Some players, analysts, and fans can't stand that the Fever are getting all this love before the season even tips off. They think it's unearned. They think it's all a media stunt. And the worst part? Instead of celebrating what Clark brings to the league, some are already planning to tear her and the Fever down the moment things don't go perfectly. So ask yourself this. Is the media actually excited about the Indiana Fever, or are they just using them? You don't bring in Stephanie White if you want soft coaching. You bring her in when you're ready to win. And from day one, she's made it crystal clear, this Indiana Fever team will earn their place, or they won't play at all. The days of excuses and sloppy effort? Over. White didn't come back to babysit. She came back to dominate. Her message to the players is simple. Defense first, everything else comes later. And she's not sugarcoating it. Behind the scenes, reports say she's already laid into players during training, holding them accountable in ways this team hasn't seen in years. If someone's late on a rotation, she's calling it out. If energy dips in practice, she's stopping everything to reset the tone. This isn't about vibes or favoritism. It's about results. And some players aren't used to that kind of heat, because what most fans don't realize is that White was the last coach to lead the Fever to a finals appearance. She knows what a championship culture looks like, and she's exposing every crack in the current system to build it again from scratch. She's not asking players to just follow her, she's demanding they buy in, fully, or get out of the way. And what happened next made that crystal clear. During a closed practice session, insiders say White snapped after seeing lazy closeouts on defense. She didn't just yell. She stopped the entire drill, ripped into the team, and made them start over. Twice. That moment spread through the locker room fast, and it sent a loud message. If you're not willing to give 100%, you won't be here long. Some players were shook. Others stepped up. And just like that, a new tone was set. Now the media is acting like they've always loved White's no-nonsense energy. But just last year, many of them mocked this kind of old-school coaching as outdated. Now, they're trying to ride the wave, but fans know the truth. Stephanie White didn't adapt to the new league. The league is being forced to adapt to her. If you're ready to hear what the media won't say about Coach White and her plans for the Fever, hit subscribe. The real story is just getting started. They weren't supposed to win. Not last year. Not with that roster. But right after the Olympic break, the Indiana Fever went on a quiet 8-2 run that barely anyone talked about. And that silence? It speaks volumes, because now, with a brand new roster and the most hyped rookie in league history, they're not just trying to compete, they're threatening to take over. The Fever are doing something that might be unprecedented in WNBA history. They went from being a team everyone dismissed, to a squad that could be championship ready in less than 12 months. Most teams rebuild over years. The Fever? They hit the gas, and the league isn't ready for what's coming. But it's not just Caitlin Clark. This team reloaded on every level. With Stephanie White leading, the system has already changed. Add in top-tier role players, veteran help, and the confidence of a strong finish last season, and you've got a dangerous mix. A team that wasn't even supposed to sniff the playoffs might now be headed straight for the finals. That kind of leap? It's almost unheard of, and it's making certain teams and certain media voices very uncomfortable. But that wasn't the whole story, because that 8-2 finish? It wasn't a fluke. It exposed something. The league's gatekeepers tried to frame the Fever as a bottom-tier team, even when the numbers said otherwise. They ignored that post-Olympic fire. They downplayed the chemistry, the growth, the fight. Why? Because giving this team any credit would have forced them to acknowledge what was really happening. And what happened next proves they were scared. Now that the Fever are fully loaded, the same people who ignored that 8-2 stretch are pretending they believed all along. But they didn't. They were late to the party, and now they're scrambling to catch up. Meanwhile, fans who actually paid attention last season already know this team isn't building for the future. The future is now. It's not a coincidence. Stephanie White didn't just fall into this job. She was brought back to finish what she started. The last time the Fever made it to the finals? 2015. And guess who was coaching them then? Yeah, her. Now she's back. But this time, she's not alone. She has Caitlin Clark. And together, they're about to rewrite WNBA history or burn everything in their path trying. John didn't hold back. He said it best. This move wasn't about comfort. It was about control. Bringing White back wasn't just smart. It was symbolic. She knows what a championship team looks like, how to build one, and how to demand that level from every player wearing a Fever jersey. The league might pretend this is just a nice reunion, but don't fall for it. This is chess, not checkers. They knew exactly what they were doing. But here's what most people forget. White nearly brought it home in 2015, with Tamika Catchings leading the way. That team had grit, heart, and an edge. Sounds familiar, right? Now, with Clark stepping into that leadership role, the parallels are too close to ignore. And people are starting to panic, not just because it might happen again, but because it might happen faster and louder than anyone's ready for. But that wasn't the whole story, because while the league and media pretend to celebrate White's return, they're secretly hoping she doesn't pull it off. Why? Because a Clark-led title run under White's command would destroy every excuse they've used to downplay both of them. It would force them to admit what they refused to last year, that Clark isn't just popular, she's legit. And White? She never should have been gone in the first place. And what happened next made it even more obvious. The moment White took over again, the entire tone around the Fever changed. Practices got tighter. Expectations got higher. Players started moving different. And fans, they started believing, not in a rebuild, not in slow growth, but in a title run, right now. The blueprint is already in place. The media just doesn't want to admit how quickly it's coming together. They tried to bury the Fever, called them overrated, and laughed off their chances. Now those same voices can't stop praising them. The media's flip isn't support, it's survival, and we're exposing every fake headline and forced compliment along the way. Subscribe now, because we're not letting them rewrite the story they tried to kill.